Hello everyone, and welcome to the simulator assignment video for chapter 13, which is all about GPS approaches. So for this assignment, I'm going to have you fly a couple of approaches, and the first one is going to be the GPS approach into Bloomsburg, which is a very basic approach. It doesn't have any glide slope or anything like that. It's a very simple one. So I'm going to fly it here in X-plane. Now, something that's going to be a little bit different. In previous videos, we didn't really talk about any kinds of avionics and, how you would use, say, a Garmin, GPS, Navcom. And there's a reason for that, because you really shouldn't care what your avionics are to fly a VOR, ILS, etc. Well, when it comes to GPS approaches, that's a little bit different. So I'm going to fly this approach. Now, one thing that I've done is I have connected my sim to my tablet here, running WingX. You can do something similar if you're running other products like ForeFlight, but just something I wanted to make you aware of. If you're running WingX, how do you do that? It's actually pretty easy to do. If I go to the settings real quick, and now I go to network, you'll notice that I have the ability to connect to, Xavian or FlyQ, and basically I can send AHRS information to my tablet, so I can make it pretend like, it's got a Stratix or something similar. So it's kind of neat. You just need to have the IP address of your tablet. And once you have that, everything's all synced up. And I tested this out. And of course, on my tablet here, I'm getting geolocation. So if you look, you'll see the little blue airplane shown on my approach plate, because I'm at the end of runway 9 at the moment. All right, so let me go and real quickly, I'm going to pull up this approach plate. In a browser so that you can actually see it. So here it is. And let's go ahead and brief it real quick. So it is the Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania approach, RNAV GPS Bravo, Bloomsburg Municipal N13. Approach course is 073. Runway landing distance NA. Touchdown zone elevation NA. Airport elevation 481. And there's the T. Says departure procedures or alternate departure minimums exist, and the A says NA. You cannot file this thing as an alternate. Helicopter visibility reduction below 1 statute mile, NA. DME, RNP 0.3 NA. So if you've got a old school RNAV unit that is using DME, you can't do that with this approach, because DME uses more than one VOR and DME from that, and you can't access enough VORs in the little location where we're at here in Bloom with the ridges and such around us. Right? Can't do it at night, and use the Williamsport altimeter setting. Missed approach, climbing left turn to 4,000 direct MIP, VORTAC, and hold. Continue climb and hold to 4,000. Wilkes-Barre approach departure control is going to be 126.3. In reality, it's probably going to 120.95. And the Unicom is 122.8, which is also the CTAF, and it controls the lights. Looking at our plan view, it's an I pattern. You can start at Selinsgrove. You can start at Punley. You can also start at JMIP if you want to do the holding pattern reversal. Notice it says no PT from Punley or from Selinsgrove. And We have our initial approach fix, possibly, and our intermediate fix of JMIP. Final approach fix is FOLIV, and our missed approach point is Ganry. And here's our missed approach path. MSA for 25 miles is going to be 4,000 feet. And that's from Ganry, the missed approach point. And remember, when they have the circle, that's a fly over. When there's no circle, it's a fly by point. All right, profile view. If we do the holding pattern, it's going to be a 4 nautical mile holding pattern. And we will be at 3,200 or above. Once we pass JMIP, we can descend down to 2,500 till we get to FOLIV. And then we can descend down to 1,540 or 1,560, depending on how fast we're going. Once we get to Ganry, if we don't see anything, we have to go missed. Here's the Aerodrome Sketch. And you'll notice it does not bring you straight in. Also, of course, the beacon is in the wrong place on this diagram. And it says medium intensity runway lights on runway 927. And that's it. There's no approach lighting. It's one of many reasons why the minimums are not what we would like here at Bloomsburg. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my sim now. And now what? Now I'm going to actually look at this Garmin unit. Now here's the thing. They have a Garmin 530, 430 stack. And you might say, but I have something different in my plane. Well, sorry. Here's the thing though. If you have a Garmin GPS, maybe some of you might actually fly a 430 or 530. If you fly a Redbird, guess what it has? It has the same stack. You might say, but I have a nice 650. Okay, the 650 or the 750 is basically this, but it's the touchscreen version. So there's a lot of similarities. In fact, if you look at a G1000 system, there's also a lot of similarities there with the way things work. So let me give you like the absolute most basic stuff about this Garmin. So over here on the right, you have this dial. You got the outer knob and the inner knob. The outer knob is essentially going to select the page that you're on, and the inner knob will select the sub page. You know, some people think of this instead of a page, they would say, okay, it's like a book. These are the chapters are selected with the outer knob, and the pages are selected with the inner knob. So right now I'm on the nav screen. You see these dots. I'm on the first nav screen, second nav screen, third nav screen. If I go on the outer knob, it takes me to waypoints. And then I have the nearest airports. I can also look at nearest VORs, intersections, NDBs, and all of that. So let me go back to my nav screen. So that's some of the basics of using these Garmin units. There's a menu button. You press the menu button, you can configure various things. Not really going to get into that too much. Right now I want to talk about flight planning on these units. So if you have even a G1000, it's going to have a FIPL button, flight plan. It's also going to have a proc button for procedure, where you select the procedure that you're going to fly. So I'm going to set up my flight plan like so. Now, I could be lazy and I could just say I want to go direct to this location. Don't do that. Remember that flying IFR is about a couple of things. Flying IFR is learning to fly with precision and getting your stuff organized. Right? You should have everything ready before you leave the ground. That is especially true with a simulator. It's even more true than the actual airplane when you're talking about like a little PC sim like I have here, because trying to twist these knobs using your mouse as you're flying is kind of hard. You know, if you're flying something like the Redbird, it's definitely easier, but still get your stuff ready before you depart. Okay, so I'm going to enter a flight plan. So I'm going to hit my flight plan button here. And I want to go ahead and just clear out this flight plan because I currently have a flight plan from Lancaster to Lancaster. So I would like to delete this flight plan. I am going to move my cursor with this outer knob. I'm going to press enter. Enter essentially means yes. And now I'm going to push the knob, activate my cursor. I'm going to start dialing in an identifier. Now, unfortunately, this is a little bit cumbersome, and wouldn't it be nice if I could just dial this in or type it in on my keyboard? Well, it would be. It also wouldn't be completely authentic to do it that way. So we will enter this here. So I'll hit enter and enter again. Okay, now I need to give it another place. I can't just say I want to go from N13 to N13. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to say I'm going to go to Punley. So I'll go to Punley. So let me add that in. Start turning the knob. So now I have Punley, and then I'm going to go from there back to N13. All right, so I have my flight plan. I can just hit Fipple again. And now I have a flight plan. Not quite done yet because I want to select a procedure. So I'm going to hit proc. And it says select approach. Yes, please. I would like to do the RNAV Bravo. And then it says, where would you like to start? I would like to start, let's just start at Punley. We could also go to JMIP and do a holding pattern, but today I'm just feeling like going from Punley. So I'm going to say enter. Now it says, do you want to load or do you want to activate it? If I say activate, it's going to load it and it's going to send me directly to the first point in that approach. So I'm going to go ahead and say activate. And here's my approach. Now, just for grins, let me go ahead and do that again. And this time I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm not going to activate it. I'm just going to load it. And I see I have a message. It's out of date on the nav data. Surprise, surprise. I could also set up the comm frequencies and all that. For today, I'm not going to bother. But that's kind of how you get started with setting this up. And now we just have to fly it. All right, let's fly it. So we're here at Bloom. Go ahead and throttle up. First, I'm going to unpause my simulator, that is. I'm going to throttle up. All right, rotating. Climbing out. Going to get a little altitude, and I'm going to turn to my 059 heading. All right. Climbing up to 2200. All right, so there's my altitude. Now I can go to Punley. Climbing up to 3,200 feet. Now notice that it's terminal sensitivity. I've got my altitude. I'm going to go ahead and push down the nose a little bit. Level off here. Okay, and I've decided to use the number 2 nav here to navigate to Punley. I'm going to go ahead and hide this because it's covering most of my 6-pack. It's telling me my bearing to Punley is about 266. So I'm going to turn left just a little bit. And I'm going to fly toward Punley. All right, so we've made it to Punley. So we're going to go ahead and turn to our heading of 160. And we're going to track that 5-mile leg inbound. If I want to, I can descend a little bit down to 3,200. And then once I get to JMIP, it will turn me in again. And I will be down to 2,500 till I get to full live. I'm now just under 2 miles from JMIP. It's warning me that I'll have to turn soon. So we're turning now. So now that I'm established inbound, I can descend down to 2,500. Feet to go. 4.8 miles. Now, if I were to look at my tablet right now, I'm going to see that I didn't fly right over JMIP. Remember, this is a fly-by waypoint, not a fly-over waypoint. Feet to go. You'll notice if I bring up my Garmin, I'll go ahead and full screen it here for a second. See how it says LNAV plus V. So remember, we talked about that advisory glide slope, and that's exactly what I have here on my CDI. So I'm going to go ahead and continue my descent down to 2,500. And I'll level off once I get there until I get to full of. And then from full of, I am going to descend down to 1540. Starting to level off. Two miles to go. Advisory glide slope is still above me. That makes perfect sense because I am below it because it's going to be at 2,500 feet and 1.4 miles. As I approach JMIP, there is a slight turn. And there you have it. I'm on my final segment. I'm going to go ahead and slow her down a little bit. I've been flying it like it's a rental just for sake of time, but let me go ahead and throttle back. Hundred feet more to descend. 600 feet. 3 miles. 3.7, I should say. $500 feet. Just slightly below this advisory glide slope, but I am apparently tracking it fairly well. My tablet is telling me I am 2.7 miles from the runway, and I would need a 900 foot per minute descent to land on that runway right now. $200 to go. $100. All right, leveling off. Transitioning to a visual approach. And my tablet now says I need a 1,200 foot per minute descent. So let me see if I can manage that or not. I'm going to shoot a little bit to the left. Now, of course, the solution, as we've talked about before, to this problem is I could just circle around and land back on runway 9, assuming that the winds were favoring runway 9. I could also circle around and land on runway 27 if that's what the winds were favoring. So you know what? I think I will do that today. Just for grins and just kind of show you how that goes. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm kind of going to set up for a downwind, but it's not really a downwind. That's another thing that we've talked about before. Don't confuse flying this approach with flying VFR. Don't feel like you have to fly a regular pattern. Remember, you want to not lose sight of that airport. So I might announce what I'm doing. I might say something like Bloomsburg traffic, Skyhawk 2 Sierra Papa is entering a tight downwind for runway 27, circling off the VOR, or actually GPS approach. Now, of course, VFR guys are like, what was that? And they don't know what that means, but all right, so I'm pretty low, about 400 feet in the air here, and I'm also kind of tight in. I'm going to go ahead and start dropping some flaps. And just like a real Cessna, it tries to pop the nose up on me. Of course, I want to not lose sight of the airport. So I'm pretty much a beam here. Start turning in. And at this point, I'm flying visually. So So I've essentially held myself up here at 400 feet in the air as I'm circling. But again, you want to keep it tight in there. I wish I had those fancy VR goggles. I could see a little bit better. All right, there's my runway. Chopping and dropping. Certainly not the prettiest landing, but I think you get the idea. All right, so that is your first task for this chapter. Just fly the GPS approach into Bloom.